If you're holding back on your dreams or God-given calling because of an obstacle or a limitation that seems to be in your way, then you are going to love my next guest. Please welcome Billboard-charting artist and author Sherry Ann.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
We're so glad to have you and share a little bit about your story. Now, I want to talk about your accomplishments a little bit later because you have accomplished some amazing things. But let's start with growing up. Like you had some rough years in those early years. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't realize when they meet me initially that there is something a little bit different in the way that I speak. They think I'm from New York. So people just automatically assume that it's from being from New York. It's a New York accent. But actually, I was 5 years old when I was in kindergarten, and unlike all the other 5-year-olds, I actually began failing out very early on. And when I didn't listen, didn't pay attention, or didn't follow instruction, they labeled me as a problem child. So they thought, just because I came from a difficult home, my parents divorced early on, so they just kind of labeled me as a child that was a problem child, just a child who's going through a lot and just a disruption in the class. They branded me early. But thank God the school nurse conducted a physical and found out that I was severely and profoundly hearing impaired. And as a result of that, speech impaired. So that's where the little bit of the accent or the difference in the way that I speak comes from. And so I wasn't actually a problem child. I was a child with a problem. Yeah. It was a very big difference. And of course, with that, they gave me hearing aids, and then things shifted for me.
You'll find this humorous, I think. One of my friends who is deaf sometimes tells people she has a Romanian accent.
Yes.
Because she doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah, people always say, are you European? Are you from Europe? And of course, my family background is European, but I'm not from Europe. And even in New York, people who are from outside of New York say, oh, that's just a New York accent. Well, you know what? In New York, almost every day of my life, people say, where are you from? Aww. So there is a difference in the way that you speak. And because if you can't hear, then how do you pronounce something you can't hear?
Yeah.
So I had to do speech therapy to learn how to speak.
And those first 5 years of your life when nobody knew what was going on with you, what was happening to the inside of you? Were you thinking, I am a problem?
Oh, for sure. Oh. So that's where the story is, definitely is difficult, because as a little 5-year-old, I already had now low self-esteem.
Yeah.
I already felt like I didn't measure up, like I wasn't good enough, like I could not be like anybody else. But once I got the hearing aids, my grades turned around and my grades improved. And from that point, I determined that I wasn't going to be as good as everybody else. Now I wanted to be better than everybody else, because see, now I had this point to prove. Yeah. And that kind of set me on a trajectory that eventually almost led to my demise.
Yeah, and I want to get to that, but also your home life was challenging. Yeah. Your parents were having broken relationships. How was that impacting you? Right,
so now you don't see or feel the nurturing and the warmth. They did what they could. They did the best that they could at the time, but they were kind of so busy in their own battles that they don't see the battle that maybe necessarily that I was facing. They didn't know the battle that I was facing. So they didn't know I was hearing impaired. They had their own stuff going on. No one knew. And because I was able to lip read, nobody thought anything was wrong other than she's just a little kid. She's talking funny because that's how kids talk.
Right.
So it's just you kind of feel overlooked or you are to some degree. But thankfully, again, it got found out in school, but no one knew up until that point.
That's so heartbreaking and so untrue about you being a troublemaker. And so now you're in this overachieving mode where you're going to be amazing at everything and show everyone. And at 24, you're getting your doctorate.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
But at 25, you're wanting to take your own life. So what happened?
Absolutely. Because of everything we just said, I never quite felt like I was so different. I felt different. I talked different. I looked different. I had these big hearing aids. Hearing aids back then are not like hearing aids now.
Yeah.
So I looked different. Everything about me, I just kind of felt like the odd child. And so I shut out a lot of friends. I shut out a lot of the world, so to speak, and just pursued academics. and just became a top student in just about everything. So much so that I graduated early, had scholarship to college, and became a doctor at 24. But what happened was I drove myself, this constant overachieving and having to get one more award or one more trophy or one more praise, one more of this, one more of that. I drove myself into what some people might label a nervous breakdown, but what I now know to be a perfection overdose. It was thinking that I had to achieve some perfect state of being, some incredible achievement that just I had to constantly always tap myself so that maybe if I got to this place, but you never get to that place because you always need one more. And so I guess I just thought that I could maybe almost earn this perfect state of being. And just feeling like I could never achieve it because we can't, because there's only one perfect being, and that's Jesus Christ. And just never being able to achieve that, it just drove me to a point of despair. And one night I was on my floor and I just cried out to God and I said, God, you know, what is the point of this life, of everything that I'm doing? Because no matter what I do, it doesn't heal the hurt. It doesn't take away the pain.
Yeah.
I've got awards, I've got trophies, I've got scholarship, I have a doctorate degree, but I still don't feel loved. I still don't feel worthy. I still don't feel like I measure up. And I'm so thankful that even as a hearing impaired girl, I heard these words when I asked him, what is the point? Why should I go on? Why should I do this? I heard the words, I died for you so that you can live for me. And that changed it for me because I realized it wasn't about me and what I've done and who I am. It's about who he is and what he's done for us. None of us will ever be perfect, but the good news is he loves you anyways. And he paid the price for all of your sins and all of your imperfections. And that set me free from me.
Yeah, so a lot of us, even as followers of Jesus, know that we are a daughter and that it's not about trying to perform or be worthy, but we still find ourselves slipping into those, you know, overperforming habits.
Right.
How did you really come to to own your identity as a daughter that can rest?
I think in that moment, I realized that if the God of the universe says, I love you, I died for you, I gave my life for you so that you could have life. John 10:10 says it's a thief who comes to steal and kill and destroy, but Jesus comes to give us life. So I realized in that moment that he gave his life so that I could have a life, but it's for him, in him, through him, by him. And in that moment, I said, Lord, I am so sorry for what I have made this. I have made this about me. Take my ability, take my disability, use it all for you. And that was a turning point. I don't need to do this to get God's love. I can do what I do. I have what I have because I have God's love. That's what I realized in that moment. He gave his life. No greater love than a man would lay down his life for his friends. He laid down his life for me. That realization hit me so strongly that he gave his life for me to have life. And that's when I said, okay, use my life for your kingdom.
And he has. You are a national charting, radio singles. Yeah. You are a songwriter. You've done so much with your life. Now, music icon Bill Gaither says you shouldn't be able to do what you do because to sing you need to hear.
Yeah.
But you're able to do it all. How is that possible?
You know, I thank God for God. I thank God for what he gives us. The scripture that talks about he will delight in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. I've always wanted to sing. But my mom, being hearing and speech impaired, didn't think I could make a living as a singer and a speaker, but God. And so he put that desire in me. So if he's going to put that desire in me since I was a little girl, then he's going to equip me and he's going to enable me to do it. And so when I surrendered to him, then I began to, take the steps that I needed to do to be able to fulfill what I believed was the gifting and the calling that he put in me. So I took some voice lessons for a number of years, and I did choir, and I did some musical instruments in school, and I began to pursue that path. But the amazing thing is I still did become a chiropractor, and I was for 21 years. And I continued to pursue that craft, all things in his time. Yeah. I continued to allow the Lord to work that skill and to groom that skill. But it wasn't until many years later that I actually retired from that job and do this now full time.
Amazing.
So wait on the Lord, all things in his time.
And just at the end of this interview, we're running out of time, but I think we all have obstacles. Sometimes they're invisible. They're the way that we think or talk to ourselves, or the way that people have told us what our capabilities are.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's something that you can hear or see, but we all have obstacles. Yeah. What would you say to people watching who are letting those obstacles steal the opportunities and the calling and the vision that God has for them?
I love that verse, I can do all things through Christ. We can't do it on our own. We do have challenges. None of us are perfect. None of us have it all. Yeah. But through Christ, we can do it all, what he's called and equipped us to do. So I love Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me bears much fruit. Stay in him. Stay close with him. Walk with him. Abide in him. And he will bring that fruit to pass. It's going to be hard to do it on your own. But abide in him and let him shine and come through you all that he's called you to do in his time.
Yes, and I would add to that, take the scary steps, because it couldn't have been easy for you the first time you stood in front of people and sang, not knowing how they would take it. Like, you've been so brave. Bravery is part of it. Yeah. Trusting in God. You're such an inspiration. We could talk so much longer, but thank you for coming to share your story.
Thank you. I'm blessed to be able to share.